Hello and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the Cup Chasers podcast. I'm very excited. We are kicking off a new segment, and it may or may not last all the way till the new season comes along. But we're going to be doing a summer bracket challenge, NCAA men's basketball tournament style. Want to go ahead and kick off the series with we'll talk about the rules. We'll talk about what we're going to agree on here. And first up, though, so that no one comes for me in the comments or on Instagram where we're going to post most of the bracket, I did not pick the rankings. So don't shoot the messenger. This list comes from 442. Back in November, they did a list of 100 greatest players of all time, which was received wonderfully in the media. Lots of different publications went ahead and copied them, did their own article about it. And then in this March of 2023, they did a new list of the top 100 players of the 21st century. And I've taken the top 64 on that list. I'll go ahead and post that link in the description below so that you know exactly what list, and you can go look at why 442 chose these players, so that if your favorite player isn't in the list, we don't have too many people butthurt about that. You can go ahead and take that up with 442.
I'm ready to riot, so let's find out who is out.
Oh, I mean, Cesc Fabregas missed out by 4 spots.
Oh,
It was like 67 or something. So some people aren't going to be excited about some of it. But the main sticking point, the main thing I want to discuss is, what are we going to decide the criteria, who's better than who? And my first suggestion is, if you know they'll have their best game of their career, in their prime, best game, and you have to win a Champions League final tomorrow, who do you pick to be in your team?
I might have to ask for clarification on a Champions League final, only because this past week and this weekend I've been watching, and some great players have all said they played terrible games in Champions League finals because nerves and just the moment. They've won a lot of them have won those games, but they didn't play well. So, it's, you hear them go back and look and say, I was shite, right? Or I was terrible in that game. So, I mean, maybe a big game. The Champions League final is I guess the biggest, right? Outside
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you're building a team to win a one-off in the most important game that exists. I mean, am I wrong that the Champions League is tougher to win than the World Cup?
Yeah.
So is a Champions League final bigger than a World Cup final as far as difficulty, as far as how tough it would be to win the game? And as fans of club teams, and we follow the club teams week in and week out, is a Champions League final more important than a World Cup final to you?
I mean, to me, I think everybody probably already knows this by now. It is the most important trophy to me. As a fan, I value that one a lot.
As an American, I would love a World Cup. I'm just being...
Yeah, I know, right?
I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. But,
But I get you. I get what you're saying. I get it.
The tournament is
just the stage. Just the stage.
And it's more frequent. Like you can test that. The World Cup happens so irregularly, unless you let certain people take over. But it happens every year, and it's harder. It gets harder every year because losing, like Gundogan talking about, hey man, this is the third one. If I lose this one, I'm never going back again. So I get it.
Yeah.
The World Cup is such a different tournament.
It is.
Than the Champions League.
They got 7 games in a month.
And it's not a sequence of a season. Like it's not the journey.
That's why I'm saying, you know.
I have another question for just to clarify. Are we building it per position, or like, so if I think a defense, like I just take 18 defense, or 64 slots. What is that? 16 teams. If I take 16 defenders all the way through, it's not my team. It's just who I'm fielding out of these two. Right? Exactly. Okay.
Right. So don't.
So it's like the FIFA card picks. You got A and B. That's it. You got to pick one.
Exactly. Yeah.
It worked.
So like, you know what I'm saying? So you'll have to make a determination. This is where the subjectivity will come in. Say Petr Cech is up against Didier Drogba. You have to make a determination. Is Drogba's goals more important than Cech saving the goals?
Yeah, I see.
And that's where the subjectivity comes in, because it's up to you.
Right.
For example, for me, Drogba's goals are more important.
Right.
But maybe Patrick thinks that Cech is a more important player to a team that he is building.
Right.
I would pick Cech.
Cech's irreplaceable. I can find somebody to score goals. Like that's how I see what you're saying.
Not to get off on a tangent, but
that's the point.
What you're saying. Yeah.
While Drogba gets the praise for winning the Champions League with the 2 goals, of course the one to tie it, and then the goal in PKs. If it wasn't for Cech saving the goal against saving the PK against Iron Robin, that doesn't happen.
Not even
Perfect.
But Cech should have saved Muller's. It's too.
I don't know about
he was on his head the whole game,
he was
man.
A foot and a half away from. I know.
Dude had like
Exactly.
20 saves.
Perfect, guys, because that right there is what I want this to be about. Is that conversation. So yes, all of that's exactly what I want. That's exactly what I was thinking would be good. Now, I want to give the shout for, having a 38 game season. And who do you want more? You and I were kind of arguing when we were doing the Henry Drogba thing about what's more important.
Right.
Because in this instance, for me, 38 game season, it's Henry. But a Champions League final, if you look at their stats, you pointed it out. Drogba's got 10 goals, or did he play in 10 finals? Whatever. He scored in finals. He scored goals in finals, So that's what
he was going to score.
That's what I'm saying. It makes a big difference.
Right.
What we're basing it on. And for me, a one-off Champions League final is like the hardest thing to do. I mean, I know winning a 38 game season is difficult, but
it has not been done. Yeah, like you said.
So I want to agree. I want to go ahead and agree on what we're going to do it based on, and what that one decision, that one distinction between the two guys is going to be. My vote's Champions League final.
Well, if it comes down to if we boil everything down to the argument of Champions League final or season, if that's the determining factor in that, why not just panel it and take a vote who you're picking, why, and then just move that person forward?
It's funny because I agree with the Champions League final because that's a more universal metric. But for example, as a City supporter, how many guys do you know or can you trust to do what Aguero did? Because that's the most clutch thing. Because he could have went down. Like if you've watched it, it was a penalty. He could have went down, and he was like, "No, I'm gonna go score." Like how many guys do that? They have even the Balotelli pass, like the whole thing. And because I think what Gundogan did, or the pass De Bruyne gave to Gundogan to win 3-2, like those games are sort of on the level because you played 38 games, and if you don't win this one,
it's a big moment. Like your big moment player.
Yeah. It's different.
Your X factor.
And there's a degree of familiarity which makes those games more challenging because these guys know you. So City being down mattered. Whereas in the Champions League, you don't really know your opponent. So you play a different style because there's still some trepidation and unfamiliarity where you're hoping that what you do is you think the tendency you think is right. So I think this is where for example, choosing Cech is going to be a keeper is going to be a keeper. He's going to be who he is all the time, regardless of the competition. But my striker might not play the same. And so so I agree the Champions League is a more equal field, but I think that big game matters because I can think of plenty of times where you needed a guy to score, and they did. And United is full of those guys. Fergie time is full of that. And I think together those guys won 2. I think one group won 1, and then the next group came in and won another one. But they were in finals and didn't win. Mm-hmm. So I hear you, but I just want to throw that out there. The big game matters.
It's interesting you mentioned that because I'm reading 442's 100 best football players, and I'm looking at their top 3. And
let me look at this too.
Are you looking at the right list? Are you looking at the 21st century list, or are you looking at the of all time list?
All time list.
We're using the 21st century list.
Okay, but my point, what I was going to say is they're talking about Diego Maradona, right? Mm-hmm. And if you read through, he never passed the group of 16 in the Champions League final, but he's known for one of the greatest performances in World Cup history.
It's legacy. I think Diego Maradona gets his card off of legacy, and it's not very. It's like Pele. If we were to move Pele or Maradona into the stats conversation, into the cup conversation, it's like their legacy transcends 6 World Cups or 5 Champions Leagues. It's just who that the fandom and how they've idolized something. I don't think Maradona was ever that. But I mean, just from a modern days, this is how I've known football. I've watched it since I was 2003, 04. I'm old enough to understand what's going on. Maradona compared to those guys, even watching the clips and reading the highlights, that does not compute to what Leo Messi, what Ronaldinho was able to do. And it's just their legacy transcends it so much. And I hate that's why I like that they separated this, not to talk.
Yeah, well, that's why I switched. That's why I switched to the 21st century one. And that's also my point about my caveat with the 38 game season. And it's another reason I switched is because let's look at this, for example.
I don't know why.
Ruud van Nistelrooy played in a different era than, say, Kevin De Bruyne.
Very different.
And so that 38 game season for Nistelrooy was way different than it is for Kevin De Bruyne.
Yeah.
So we would run into that kind of, and because it's tough to put those kinds of clarifications in a one-off poll on a social media post, I'm personally, that's, another support for just a Champions League final being the determination.
I like it. Yeah, no, I'm looking at that list too now, Patrick.
It's the 21st century one, right?
Yep. Top and I took the top 64 from 64 down to 1.
Hazard made 60. Oh, I see what you're talking about.
That's so 15 seed. Yeah, and that's how I seeded him as well. So
I'm a little salty that the order is backwards. I understand why the order is backwards, but going to page 6 first doesn't make me happy.
Yeah, that didn't make sense. Yeah.
But I get it. I understand.
But as far as the ranking, 64 was Nistelrooy, was actually Ruud van Nistelrooy. So he caught the 16, and then 63 was 16, 62 was a 16.
Way.
Yeah.
This list is wild. I see why you caveated. I see why you said don't get mad at me.
It does make for a great discussion. And so can we go ahead and agree the parameter is Champions League final?
Yeah.
Players have their best game of their life tomorrow in the Champions League final. Who are we going to pick? So that is the official way that we're gonna do this here. There he is. I think you're on mute.
Yeah, I am. Sorry.
Perfect. Do you agree as well? Champions League final is our metric?
Yeah, might as well.
Perfect.
I mean, it's the one-off that, it's the biggest stage outside of a World Cup final.
Perfect.